Well, today's episode is going to be a lot of interest. As you know, for AEW, we are almost close to World's End. But however, as you probably know, on Christmas Day, they actually showed the last of the Continental Classic. But the real question is, who will be in the semifinals at, of course, World's End? We're just going to find out. And then, of course, we move on with Ring of Honor featuring many matches. The main event being, of course, the Pure Championship match. Lee Moriarty defends his belt against Commander. The real question is, can Commander, of course, defeat Lee Moriarty, become the new Pure Champion, or will Lee Moriarty prevail once again? That's something we will also see as well. And then we move on with our last and final thing, news updates, to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Deleted Retro Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK. Anywhere pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information is unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us or click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough of the jibber jabbers. Let's get to it. So let's begin with, of course, some holiday cheers from AEW Christmas Collision. Okay, AEW Christmas Collision. Now, majority of this entire programming is all about the Continental Classic. As you probably know, there's going to be the semifinals that will be taking place at, of course, World's End. So we will see how this will progress. Now, our first match of the Continental Classic, we have Kyle Fletcher versus Jack Perry. This is the Gold League. And I have to say, it was the most brutal match you ever see. Kyle Fletcher was intending to, of course, hurt Jack Perry at any means necessary, including by injuring his foot. And of course, during that time, Jack Perry had to rest with one shoe only because of Kyle Fletcher's malicious attack. But unfortunately for Jack Perry, it didn't do any good for him whatsoever because it was Kyle Fletcher with the brainbuster, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, that was pretty much it for him. So he gained the total points of 9. Now, we did see an interview with, of course, Renee Paquette talking to Roderick Strong. Now, he has been out of the Continental Classic due to the low points, and he's facing against Claudio Castagnoli. But Kyle O'Reilly, of course, showed up and told him, to stop doubting himself, to tell him that you always have people in your back. Basically, he's been, of course, ignoring the conglomeration who always have his back no matter what. And, of course, he's going up against someone who he knows is too powerful and strong for him. So we'll see how that will progress. Now, our next match, we got the Blue League of the Continental Classic, Konosuke Takeshita taking on Mascara Dorada. Now, of course, Mascara Dorada, he could still be staying in this if that's the case. But, however, he's facing a man, as you probably know, has already won tournaments before. Don't forget, he was this year's winner of the G1 Climax that led him to become the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. So the question is, can he do it again? Well, let's see how that plays out too. But, however, of course, Takeshita did everything humanly possible to put down Mascara until he applied the Raging Fire, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was done. He ends his tournament with the total points of 13. So that means he is in the top of the ladder. But as for Mascara Dorada, well, he remained at 6. So basically, he not too bad right there. Now, as we continue more of the Blue League, we have Claudio Castagnoli versus Roderick Strong. Now, of course, Roderick Strong knows that the stack is against him, against a guy who is malicious, violent, and willing to dismantle him. But Roderick Strong, as you know, he is a far more dangerous wrestler as him. But in the end, of course, it took a jumping knee strike onto Claudio Castagnoli to knock him out, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. But however, of course, like the old saying goes, a loser doesn't like to lose. So basically, little crybaby Castagnoli had his pals, Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, along with Marina Shafir, the Death Riders, showing up in retaliation against Strong. But luckily, of course, we did see Mark Briscoe with a 2x4 to deal some business. And then Marina Shafir showed up to get in his face. But unfortunately for her, well, unexpectedly, well, Toni Storm had some unfinished business with her, and she knocked her down. And then, of course, we did see a bit of a handshake from Mark Briscoe, but Mark Briscoe decided to be such a gentleman, which is something we rarely don't see in him. And I'm sure the Death Riders couldn't believe that either. But, well, as you probably know, Marina Shafir and Toni Storm will collide. So we will see that soon enough. But, however, even though Roderick Strong did not win the tournament, but he did gain some points by taking out a Death Rider. So we'll see how that plays out too. Now, we did see a video promo from that Weasel Stokely, basically telling the Bang Bang Gang about everything's going to happen in World's End. That he is believing that FTR will walk out victorious because that's who they are. But we'll see what happens, because Stokely had it where we know what kind of weasel he is. Now, our next match is the Continental Classic with more of the Gold League. We have Kevin Knight taking on the Bastard Pac. Well, as you probably know, this is one of those moments where somebody has to give. I mean, these guys took their absolute best of each other to take each other out, try to gain their next 3 points, but unfortunately that did not happen, because the entirety of the match, it ended in a time limit draw of 20. So basically each person gets 1 point each, and the total points for them they got is 7. So basically each person got 7 points completely. So that's how things end with them right there. Now, Gabe Kidd, as you know, he's been recently targeting, Darby Allin. If you guys remember, they put Darby Allin in a blink of fire thanks to Pac and that sort of thing. But, however, of course, Darby had no interest in dealing with Gabe Kidd, but Gabe Kidd feels that someone needs to put him out of his misery for good. But of course, Darby Allin, well, let's just say he had enough, showed up with Sting's bat, and decided to take matters in their own hands. And he did say that this coming weekend, it will be his World's End. So that means that match is going to happen between them. Now, our next match is a non-title match of the AEW Women's World Tag Team Belts. We have High-End and Maya World, who we have recently been seeing them appear in both AEW and Ring of Honor for quite some time. They take on, of course, our current AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions, the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron, and Willow Nightingale. Now, obviously, it's no secret that this match was going to end up in the favor of the Babes of Wrath. Well, it did, because thanks to a nice combination between both Willow Nightingale and Carly Cameron, they picked up the win onto Maya World, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. But however, they decided to do a little post-match promo, giving them a little Christmas story of their own, which about, women kicking ass, that sort of thing. So I thought it was real nice touching. Now, moving on, we have, of course, the Blue League of the Continental Classic. We have Orange Cassidy versus Jon Moxley. Now, it's no secret that these guys have faced off each other before. We have seen, of course, Orange Cassidy, who is disliked by the Death Riders due to his unique ability. But however, he has grown significantly ever since then, and he's willing to get a measure of payback. Now, of course, Jon Moxley, he has to win. That's always been his end game. But unfortunately, of course, for Orange Cassidy, that didn't do any well because he ended up in somewhat of a inside cradle roll-up type of maneuver that he was unable to escape. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, Jon Moxley picked up his next 3 points with the total points of 9. But as for Orange Cassidy, he remained at 6. But he was during that time in disbelief that he can't believe that he lost. Well, that's how it happened. So better luck next time until then. But of course, let's move on to our last match, which is the main event, part of the Gold League of the Continental Classic. We have Kazuchika Okada versus Mike Bailey. And of course, it was going to be a much brutal match that you wouldn't possibly imagine. But however, this match led to a very interesting development. I did not expect it, but it did. I mean, Mike Bailey took everything he had to take him out, but in the end, it was Okada with a pinfall onto Bailey, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. So he picked up the win. But however, what we were told later, apparently he and, of course, Konosuke Takeshita will face off each other in the semifinals in World's End. Now, this was a match I think we definitely don't want to see because we know in recent months Okada has been treating Takeshita like he's a second-class citizen because he feels that he is above him. But we'll see what happens until then. But for now, we'll end things here with AEW Christmas Collision and move on with our last review, and that is, of course, Ring of Honor. Okay, Ring of Honor, as you know. Now, for anybody who might have noticed, they were in fact at Hammerstein Ballroom, so obviously they were going to have their show there. Now, anywho, we opened up with James Drake of the GYV, the Grizzled Young Vets, taking on Eddie Kingston. Now, obviously, we know that James Drake was not going to be there alone. He has, of course, his tag partner, Zach Gibson, by his side. And, of course, like always, we're going to see him get involved. But luckily, Eddie Kingston did not let that stop him. He was able to defeat James Drake by applying a DDT. But however, since Eddie Kingston has no one by his side, well, it became a 2-on-1 attack in the post-match. Of course, we never seen Eddie this beaten down, but sooner or later, Eddie might get a measure of revenge. We just don't know when or where. Now, we did see a little Santa Claus in the dang ring, of course, and that idiot, Mark Sterling, is trying to say that he gets some holiday cheers, but of course, Santa Claus told that athlete sucks, which of course is fun. But however, he got chokeslammed by Stormy Denali, and of course, it ended up in a 6-person tag match. We have, of course, the premier athlete, Stormy Denali, Tony Nese, and Arya Daivari. They were, of course, facing Ashley Voss, VSK, and, of course, John Cruz. But unfortunately, you probably can guess this match ended in the premier athlete's favor, thanks to Denali's chokeslam onto Ashley Voss. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, we did see a bit of an interview with Lexi talking to Commander. Now, many who may not know this, Commander reminded us that in this very same venue is where he became the Ring of Honor World Television Champion. So basically, he's trying to say if he was able to win the ROH World Television Champion, then that means he could do the same thing as well for the Pure title. Obviously, that could happen. I mean, we have seen people that say this is the same place where this and that happened. But we'll just see what takes place afterwards. Now, of course, we'd had Mina Shirakawa taking on Rebecca Scott. But obviously, for many of us, we all know that Mina was going to win this match regardless. So this match ended with Mina defeating Rebecca Scott with a figure 4 leg lock. And just like that, it was over. However, we do move on, of course, with our next thing. Now, we did see, of course, Lex Lanier talked to two very usual of people we didn't expect them to interact. Bandito, who is the current ROH World Champion, talking to Jay Lethal, a former ROH World Champion. So Jay Lethal took the time to talk to him. He says, look, I know you obviously team up with Brody King. That is your thing with him. But you and I have a common enemy, and that is Swirl. Remember, Blake Christian has been targeting Bandito for a long time because he feels that he should be the ROH World Champion. He felt like, your time is up, Bandito, it's my time. But also, he's been a pain in the butt to Jay Lethal. Don't forget, Blake Christian has been using the lethal injection to get under his skin for months. So he figures, hey, look, you have to deal with Blake Christian, I have to deal with him too. So you and I team up the deal with Swirl. And of course, Bandito, he knows that he needs someone to watch his back if Brody's not there too. So they have a common enemy. So we'll see what happens until then. Now, our next match, we have Alec Price and Jordan Oliver. For those who don't know these guys are a very amazing tag team in the independents. But they're facing against Swirl, obviously, that this match was going to be. I have to say they did a very hell of a performance, both Alec Price and, of course, Jordan Oliver. But Swirl were able to pick up the win by applying a very interesting combination where Blake Christian tried to do like a somewhat of a version of the lethal injection, but instead turned into a kick. And then, of course, the Bane Buster by Leon to, of course, Oliver. And then Blake Christian picked up the win by pinfall. 1, 2, 3. It was done. Excuse me. Now, our next match, we have Zach Gibson taking on Bryce Donovan. Of course, Gibson's not by himself. He has James Drake by his side. But you can tell that this match in favor of Zach Gibson when he took him out with a lariat. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Now, Lex Senior was, of course, conducting an interview with Dalton Castle and the Outrunners until they were attacked by MXM Collection dressed up in Santa Claus figures. You know, Santa Claus, the elves, that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens between those guys. Now, we did see the Frat House, consistent, of course, Griff Garrison and Cole Carter, taking on Boom and Doom, of course. Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall. Now, of course, we know that the Pledge was going to get their hands themselves involved, but of course, we did see Preston Vance and Jack Jamison attempting to hurt QT Marshall, but luckily, of course, Big Justice refused to let that happen. Even, of course, they tried to use a chair on him, but luckily, Aaron Solo was able to stop it. But the referee was blind not to see what was really going on. Basically, he threw out both Big Boom and Solo out. But, of course, unfortunately, Jack Jamison and Preston Vance got caught with the cookie jar. They were also thrown out, so fair enough. But in the end, we did see a very interesting combination between QT and AJ. We call the Super Boom Buster. And of course, QT picked up the win. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Now, our next match, we did see, of course, Lio Rush versus Katsuyori Shibata. Well, we all knew this match was going to end with Katsuyori Shibata since he changed his attitude, aligning himself with the Ops and changing their ways, that sort of thing. So we'll see what that leads. Now we move on to the ROH Pure title, Commander versus Lee Moriarty. As you probably can guess, it was going to be a very interesting match. Obviously, Commander doesn't have that much experience with the Pure style, but however, of course, we did see that his commander, his rope breaks were, exceeded. Lee Moriarty only lost 1, but in the end, of course, without the rope breaks, Commander had no choice but to tap because he was submitted in between the ropes, which was something we've been seeing with Lee Moriarty use the entirety of the whole thing. So we'll see what happens until then. But Lee Moriarty retained the belt. The obvious question is, who will be the one to dethrone him? Well, we'll just have to wait and see when that day comes. But for now, ROH is done. That's pretty much it for there. So let's end it with some news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news updates. So let's begin with upcoming events, starting with updates from GCW. Now, as you know, on the 31st of December, which is New Year's Eve, their event Do or Die will happen. Well, apparently they announced, of course, Jimmy Lloyd will take on Don Freeze. I did mention Don Freeze recently, who was scheduled in one of these events. Well, he'll be facing Jimmy Effin Lloyd. And then we have the Code of the Street that will happen in Dallas on the 17th of January in 2026. They announced Megan Bayne will take on Priscilla Kelly. Many of you know her as Gigi Dolan. Now, many matches have been announced for the upcoming West Coast Pro event, Operation Spacola that takes place on January 4th. The world title will be defended. Vinny Masaria, who is the current champion, will defend it against Danny Orion. Then we have, of course, Starboy Charlie versus Manny Lowe. We have Alpha Zoe taking on Shimbashi. And then there's an I Quit match between JP Thornton and Jaya Jewel. House of Glory has announced for their LA show on the 30th of January 2026, the current House of Glory Women's Champion Shotzi Blackheart will be appearance. All women's British promotion Eve has announced for their upcoming event Wrestle Kingdom that will take place on March 8th. Sendai Girls, the Queen of Hardcore, Dash Shizaka will be making, of course, her appearance. And then finally, as you know, Sareee-ISM will be back on that later on March 22nd, which will be marked known as the 15th anniversary, Chapter 10, and it's going to be in a much bigger venue in Yokohama Budokan. It's still unclear how many matches will be. I'm sure there'll be plenty of them for everybody to enjoy, assuming that Sareee will be involved. So we'll see what happens until then. So mark your calendar, folks. Now, moving on to some developments. Fightful Selects reports that Danhausen is expectedly interest in to join WWE. As soon as his contract with AEW will be finished, he'll probably make his move. Now, there have been some reports recently about certain, like half and half, about someone Danhausen, others don't. So we don't know if that's 100% confirmed. But if Danhausen is interested in going to W, that's going to be interesting. So we'll see where that goes from there. Now, Fightful Select also reports that NXT are considering doing more road scheduled TV for 2026. Now, we know they have been appearing in various locations, but they want to do more. So we'll see what happens until then. Hopefully that's approved. Fightful Select also reports that Joe Hendry, there's been discussion about moving him up to the main roster. Now, we know he has been in NXT for a little bit of a couple of months, so we'll just wait to see where it leads us. Now, this one, our last and final development is coming from Rossy Ogawa. Now, many of you may know this about him. Rossy Ogawa has been declared as the father of Mayu Iwatani. Now, for those who may not know this whole story about this, when Mayu, who originally came from the countryside of Japan, she stayed with Rossy Ogawa in his apartment. Now, I know some people would think that's kind of creepy. Yeah, but Rossy's always been like a father to her, because if you all know, when Rossy was fired from Stardom, it kind of broke Mayu's heart, seeing her father being fired in some ways. And apparently Mayu recently, she called Rossy Ogawa. Like I said, she always looked at him as a father. Mayu actually called Rossy and telling him that her cat passed away. And of course, Rossy, being like a father figure to her, dropped everything and decided to go to see Mayu. And that shows that kind of character. Now, some people can say what they want about Rossy. I mean, Rossy is a scumbag. Rossy doesn't know what he's talking about. But when it comes to Mayu, he always makes her priority because she always been like a daughter to him. And that's very nice, beautiful thing to hear from him. And this is what he posted on his X account about Mayu's cat. I received a call from Mayu Iwatani saying that her beloved cat, Sora, has passed away. I rushed to see her before the hasty cremation. She looked just like sleeping peacefully. 12 years ago, when Mayu returned to the dormitory, she brought Sora with her. Sora was the first cat I ever doted on in my life. I never forget the joy expression she made, scratching up for her faces when she is chewy in her mouth. As her name suggested, Sora was Journey to the Sky. For Mayu will be a memorial match. Yeah, so that's the kind of person that Rossy is. I mean, he did allow her to keep the cat. He couldn't say no to her, but something about the cat touched him. I mean, many of you may know this. Mayu did stated that she would never move overseas because of her cats. I don't know how many cats she has. I do know she has a dog, but it's sad to lose a cat, guys. It's not an easy thing. I mean, I have, 2 cats. We do have an outdoor cat who currently lives outside, but we feed her and of course make sure she's okay. But one of my cats, there is right now in that moment, because of her age, she could pass away. And I'm currently like in that moment. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, but it's understandable. But yeah. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it. So let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, well, I made a decision regarding for, of course, World's End. I decided I'm going to keep AEW World's End by itself, but I am also going to consider making an entire episode of all the Stardom events before we head to Dream Queendom this coming Monday. For all who don't know, Stardom will have their last big show of 2025 before we start 2026. So that's the plan. I'm determined to do so. So we'll see what happens until then. Just wish me luck on that. But for now, we'll end things here. And until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I'm as bid all of you adieu. So goodbye and have a nice day. Bang.